There's no way President Trump would accept that deal. He's called Meghan Markle nasty.
Have you ever seen someone's polished reputation slip away before your eyes? Not because of a massive scandal, but because a single joke managed to shatter the illusion? That's exactly what unfolded when Colin Jost walked onto the Saturday Night Live stage. With just a grin and a handful of punchlines, he transformed Meghan Markle's carefully managed public image into a late-night spectacle.
One of the conditions of Trump's new trade deal with the UK is that Harry and Meghan have to go back.
For a long time, Meghan's journey has been promoted as the ultimate modern fairy tale. An American TV actress who fell in love with a British prince, broke free from royal protocols, and set out to become the face of a new, independent kind of royalty. But beneath the photo spreads and high-profile interviews, something always felt slightly artificial.
Does he feel sorry for Prince Harry because his wife is a lot to deal with? Trump says he hates the way that Harry dealt with the late.
When Jost started talking, it was like he tore the curtain down and let everyone see what was hiding behind it. His first jab was simple but sharp. He joked that President Trump had supposedly negotiated a new agreement with the UK and that Britain only had one request: keep these two. The live audience exploded in laughter, and almost instantly, social media picked up the moment and ran with it. That was only the spark that lit the fuse. The next several minutes were relentless. Jost didn't just tease Meghan about her constant presence in the news. He dissected the contradiction between her demands for privacy and her endless media projects. He quipped about her Netflix shows, her podcast, and her sudden interest in selling fancy jam. But it was his remark about Princess Diana's spirit telling Meghan to relax that hit hardest. Some people chuckled nervously. Others were stunned. But everyone recognized that he had said what many were thinking. It was like the entire country suddenly felt awkward together. For years, Meghan has been the architect of her own story, carefully controlling interviews, publishing selective narratives, and posting curated glimpses into her world. But that night, she became just another celebrity caught in a tangle of contradictions. Jost called her a wannabe Diana with a Wi-Fi connection, and the sting of that line lingered long after the applause died down. What made the moment even more striking was the silence that followed. Influencers who had once rushed to her defense seemed to look the other way. Journalists who wrote supportive essays about her struggles stayed unusually quiet. Even the entertainment industry, where Meghan had signed million-dollar deals, seemed hesitant to say much at all. It was as if everyone realized at once that something had shifted. Public sentiment was already sliding downhill. Polling in the UK showed that Meghan's popularity had sunk to record lows. In the US, where she'd generally been met with more sympathy, enthusiasm was cooling. People weren't necessarily angry, they were just exhausted. Through so many interviews, reveals, and projects, the audience was burned out. That fatigue wasn't because her story didn't matter, it was because it had been repeated and repackaged so many times that it lost its impact. Her original appeal was rooted in vulnerability, in her willingness to confront outdated royal expectations. But when that same narrative is monetized again and again, it stops feeling like truth. So when Jost cracked that she was the first person to escape adversity by inking a Spotify contract, it felt less like mockery and more like someone finally stating the obvious. If Meghan has anything in abundance, it's drive. Over the past year, she's rolled out her American Riviera Orchard label, hinted at launching wellness products, and started working on another series about her experiences. She's styled herself as a lifestyle authority, an example of how to live intentionally and freely. But the optics are hard to ignore. While she champions simplicity, she resides in a multi-million-dollar mansion. While she asks for privacy, she stars in documentaries about her own life. That friction between her words and reality has always existed, but it took one comedian standing behind a desk to put it into words everyone could understand. Meghan never issued an official statement about the routine, but sources close to her claim she was outraged, calling the jokes sexist and deliberately cruel. Observers, however, argued that if you expect to control the entire public conversation about you, you're probably in the wrong business. As the video racked up millions of views, something even stranger happened. New hashtags exploded. #PRPrincess, #FakeDiana, #MeghanFatigue, and didn't fade away like so many viral moments do. Instead of the predictable chorus of famous supporters stepping up to shield her, there was a collective shrug. People weren't piling on because they hated her. They were simply worn out. At the same time, her sister-in-law Kate Middleton kept doing exactly what she'd always done, staying quiet, making appearances, and not offering an opinion. She didn't need to release statements or produce a podcast to shape public perception. And ironically, that quiet approach only made her look more genuine. The more Meghan tried to explain herself, the more appealing Kate's silence became. That contrast created a new narrative all on its own. Meghan has worked tirelessly to craft the image of an accessible, forward-thinking royal. But every time she launched another personal brand or heartfelt project, it seemed to confirm the suspicion that this was just another performance. And when the public senses performance rather than sincerity, comedians like Jost don't even have to exaggerate to get a laugh. Behind closed doors, industry insiders started asking difficult questions. One media consultant said it best: when a mainstream show like SNL can roast a public figure so effectively, and the crowd cheers instead of groans, it's often a sign that the audience is ready to move on. Once people doubt your authenticity, all the glossy documentaries in the world won't restore it. And that's why this segment felt so significant. For once, there wasn't a battle over who was right or whether the palace had treated Meghan fairly. There was just a collective moment of recognition. The realization that after years of carefully polished storytelling, people were ready to laugh instead of applaud. The heart of it all is a truth that can't be ignored. No matter how much you spend on branding, you can't force people to see you the way you see yourself. You can flood social media with inspirational quotes and polished video reels, but eventually the audience notices the cracks. Colin Jost's routine didn't create those cracks, it just highlighted them in a way no one could ignore. Showed that behind all the controlled messaging and strategic image building, there was something brittle and overexposed. In the end, it proved that sometimes it only takes a single well-placed joke to topple a narrative that's been years in the making. So maybe the real question isn't whether Meghan can salvage her public standing. Maybe it's whether she can ever make people believe her story was sincere. In a world where every message is packaged and resold until it stops feeling real, that's the one thing no amount of money or influence can ever truly buy back. The aftermath of that SNL segment didn't just ripple across social media. It seeped into boardrooms, editorial meetings, and brand strategy sessions. Executives who had once viewed Meghan as a guaranteed ratings boost started to reconsider. Public appetite was truly fading. What would happen to all those multi-million-dollar partnerships and sponsorships built around her image? Some entertainment insiders began using a phrase that sounded almost clinical: brand fatigue. It wasn't that Meghan had done anything scandalous. There were no criminal charges, no shocking exposés. But in a world where audiences are constantly bombarded by content, there's something uniquely destructive about oversaturation. People feel they've heard the same story too many times, they start tuning out, even if that story is true. Even her attempts to shift focus couldn't stop the slide. When Meghan launched her jam line, it was supposed to feel fresh, a break from documentaries and interviews. But critics pointed out how surreal it looked. A duchess selling jars of fruit preserves while millions struggled with rising costs and uncertainty. Tone was off, and the internet wasted no time pointing it out. What makes this even more fascinating is how quickly public opinion can pivot. Just a couple of years ago, Meghan and Harry's interview with Oprah felt like a cultural event. Viewers hung on every word, eager to hear their side of the palace drama. But the same vulnerability that once inspired empathy began to look calculated when repeated in so many formats. Harry hasn't been immune to the fallout either. Once celebrated as the prince who chose love over duty, he now often seems like a supporting character in Meghan's personal franchise. Each new appearance, whether it's promoting a memoir or discussing childhood trauma, adds to the feeling that the couple can't move past their grievances. Some supporters still defend them fiercely. They argue that no matter what Meghan does, she'll always be judged unfairly because she dared to challenge an ancient institution. There's truth in that. But even sympathetic viewers admit they're growing tired of the same narratives playing on a loop. When even your allies are exhausted, it's a sign that something has broken. Meanwhile, the royal family has barely lifted a finger to respond. There have been no fiery press releases, no formal statements condemning the comedy routine. Instead, they've quietly carried on with charity events and ceremonies. That calm indifference only sharpens the contrast. Where Meghan and Harry are always explaining, clarifying, and defending, the royals stay silent. And in the eyes of some, that silence looks like strength. This isn't to say Meghan is without accomplishments. She's raised millions for charity, spoken out on issues of race and mental health, and inspired countless people to question outdated systems. But when a public figure transforms every aspect of life into content, when every milestone becomes a branded opportunity, it starts to feel transactional. If anything, the SNL moment was just a mirror. It reflected back what many had suspected but were too polite to say, that the line between authenticity and performance had blurred beyond recognition. And once that line disappears, no amount of positive press can make it reappear. In the end, it might not be a scandal or a betrayal that defines Meghan's legacy. It could simply be that people got tired of the show. 'Cause in an era where everyone is fighting for attention, the most radical thing you can do is know when to step back and let your story breathe.